There was a stretch of road just outside the town that most people avoided. It curved away from the highway, narrowed until the trees leaned close and took longer than it needed to. Locals called it the long way home. On winter evenings, when the sun dipped early and the cold came on quietly, headlights would sometimes appear there long after the rest of the roads had emptied. Drivers who took it weren't in a hurry, or maybe they were, but not in the usual sense. The road had no shops, no houses for miles at a time, just pines, bare branches, and the sound of tires humming against old asphalt. In daylight it looked ordinary, but at night it had a way of slowing people down. Ethan took it for the first time by accident. He had left work later than usual, his mind still full of unfinished thoughts and half-resolved worries, the kind that follow you even after you shut the door behind you. He missed the turn for the highway and didn't realize it until the buildings gave way to trees. At first, he thought about turning around, but something about the quiet kept him moving forward. The radio faded into static, so he turned it off. The only sound left was the engine and the soft crunch of gravel where the pavement broke and rejoined itself. Snow had started to fall, light, unhurried, like it had nowhere else to be. The road bent and rose gently, then dipped again. It felt older than the highway, like it had been there long before anyone thought to make things faster. Ethan loosened his grip on the steering wheel. He hadn't realized how tightly he'd been holding on. As the minutes passed, his thoughts slowed too. The arguments from earlier in the day lost their sharp edges. The things he'd been replaying again and again began to feel less urgent, less heavy. He remembered being a kid, riding in the back seat while his father drove roads like this one. No destination in mind, just driving, just being together in the quiet. Back then, he never asked where they were going. He trusted that they'd arrive somewhere that mattered. The road opened briefly onto a clearing. Snow-covered ground reflected the moonlight, and for a moment the world looked brighter than it should have at that hour. Ethan pulled over without quite deciding to. He turned off the engine. The silence settled in immediately. Snowflakes drifted past the windshield, each one different, each one disappearing as quietly as it arrived. The cold pressed in from the edges, but inside the car there was warmth, a kind that came from slowing down rather than heating up. Ethan sat there longer than he meant to. He thought about the path his life had taken, the faster roads, the shortcuts, the constant push to arrive sooner. None of it had been wrong, but none of it had left much room for stillness either. When he finally started the car again, he felt lighter, not because anything had changed, but because he had. The rest of the drive passed easily. When the road eventually rejoined the highway, the lights felt less harsh, the traffic less demanding. He merged smoothly, carrying the quiet with him. From then on, whenever the day felt too loud or too fast, Ethan chose the long way home. It didn't solve his problems. It didn't magically make things simple, but it reminded him that not every journey was about speed. Some were about remembering how to breathe, and sometimes the longest road was the kindest one.